It's week 26 of the golfing calendar. And today, Nick O'Hearn is live from Cathedral in regional Victoria. He's living the life. And Mark Allen? Well, he's live at Australian Golf Headquarters, home of the PGA of Australia and Golf Australia. This is Australia's leading golf podcast, Talk Birdie to Me.
Righto, so I'm at Golf Headquarters here at Sandringham. Nick O'Hearn's at Cathedral this week, which is always seems like a lovely place to be up there, just holidaying away.
Hey, I'm near Cathedral. I'm not at Cathedral.
Oh, you know what I mean. It's close enough. Can I just say this about... I want to talk about both winners this week. So Yin, amazing. Another Chinese major winner, which is great. Keegan Bradley. He's an unusual character. I mean, he could be the nicest bloke in the whole world, for all I know. But he's one of those golfers, Nick, where there is nothing he wears, there is nothing he does with a golf club, there is nothing that wants me to go out and buy Cleveland gear or Strixon golf balls, or there is nothing about this guy apart from his record in America that makes me want to do anything about Keegan Bradley. Now, that doesn't happen very often, and like I said, you've probably met him, you've probably played with him, but it's not like he's Semi Ballesteros, you know, to where if he was using Slazenger golf clubs, I'd go out and I'd want to try and use Slazenger golf clubs because he was using them. He's an unusual character, but my God, he wins.
Yeah, he's been playing some great golf this season. I mean, he won the 2011 PGA Championship, so he is a major winner.
Using an anchor putter.
And he's had some excellent results this season. But yeah, and he's done it with the putter where he used to go belly, but now obviously not allowed to do the belly, so he had to reinvent himself a little bit there. He's one of the best ball strikers around, but you're spot on. He is very, very hard to watch because of all the little mannerisms and tics that he has. I just got to look away, and it's not the easiest thing to watch. It's a bit like watching Patrick Cantlay play in a way because, when you have those two guys at the top of the leaderboard, it's pretty uninspiring, to be honest. So I'm right there with you, Mark. He's a tough guy to watch, but he's probably going to be playing Ryder Cup, and he's going to be up there in many, many tournaments to come. So we're going to have to keep on watching.
I don't like his golf shoes. I don't like his golf pants. I don't like his golf shirt. I don't like his golf hat. I don't like his pre-shot routine. Like I said, I'd love to get him on the program and have a chat to him because I guarantee he's probably the nicest bloke in the whole world. He looked like a wonderful family man. He's doing it in his hometown in front of his family for the first time. But I have nothing. I have no love for anything that he does on a golf course.
He's really hurt you, hasn't he?
No, he hasn't hurt me. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's his pre-shot routine that is just, the twirling of the club on the ground. I've never seen anyone do that apart from, a 10-year-old. I don't know what else to say, Nick.
Yeah, well, he's not David Ogren in disguise, is he? I mean, you called him a mongrel the other week. But Keegan's he's one of those characters that just does things his own way. He used to spit a lot on the golf course. Yes. I don't think he does that as much anymore, which is one of those habits which I don't think many people certainly like. What I do like about him, though, is he can shoot 23 under par on the par 70 golf course. 257 strokes he took around TPC Hartford. So that's setting a record. He beat Kenny Perry's old record of 22 under. And some of the comments Rory McIlroy made afterwards were quite interesting. Talking about technology has sort of gone past this golf course. I mean, I've played TPC Hartford many times, played the tournament, and I actually quite enjoyed the course because I played quite well there. Over I don't know how many years. I probably played 6 or 7 times. I actually finished third there once, which was a good story. Hunter Mahan won that year in a playoff from Jay Williamson. This was back in 2007, I think, and I finished third solo, so that was a nice check. I was very happy with that. Nothing like what they get these days. Trust me, these designated events, it's out of control. But Faldo was commentating along with Jim Nance, and Hunter Mahan ended up having a putt from about 1.5 feet for the win in the playoff after I think Jay Williamson made bogey or something like that, and dead silence. And then all of a sudden, Faldo says, "Well, Hunter has 18 inches." And then he said, "For the win." But there was that pause, yes. And you could hear You could hear Jim Nance in the background, kind of just almost muffling his laugh, and it was, my gosh, it was comical. So, but the golf course is a great spectators course. It has a wonderful back nine, I think, where there's so many opportunities to make a run. I think holes 13 through 17 are probably the most fun holes on the golf course. 13's a par 5 where there's water all the way up the right. Out of bounds left, there's a railway train, which luckily I've never hit it over there, but I've seen many people hit it in there. Keegan, bailed right, knocked it in the water and made bogey. But at this stage, he had about a 6-shot lead, and he made a few bogeys coming in. But provides a lot of drama, those holes. And I think Adam Scotty earlier in the week, what did he shoot? 62 in the first round, and he was on a 59 watch for a little while, and he ended up making, I think, a double on 16 or 17. I think the par 4 where he hit it in the water. Yeah. So anything can happen coming down that stretch, and it has provided a lot of great finishes over the years.
Oh, I was going to ask you about TPC courses. The only TPC course that I've played is TPC Sawgrass, where they play the Players' Championship every year.
Yeah.
But the PGA Tour have done something kind of special over in the United States, to where they've got this suite of TPC golf courses. Now, I was going to ask you, because I imagine that you've played quite a few of them. Are they all built as stadium courses like this one was, to where you don't actually need to bring in the grandstands and put them on 17 and 18? It just seems like people can just get to these golf courses and watch brilliant golf. And the feedback on the golf course this week, I mean, I know everyone was birding everything, but the feedback, it always seems to be the same as yours, that it's a fun place to play golf.
Yeah, that's the reason I think a lot of these courses are, well, not built, but overtaken by the headquarters there at PGA Tour, where they want these courses, which are very, very fan friendly, spectator friendly, so that they can watch these good finishes. And this one certainly has that amphitheatre feel as you're coming. I think it's 15, 16, 17, the par 4, par 3, par 4. And it's just a great little spot where you can watch a lot of drama. There's water. There's people making eagles. There's people making double bogeys. 18's a bit of a so-so hole in that regard, I think, here at TPC Hartford. Because the players are just hitting the ball so far now, it just seems like a driver and a lob wedge the whole way around. And, just going back to what I was talking about with Rory, some of the comments he was saying was, I don't particularly like when a tournament is like this. Unfortunately, technology has passed this course by. It's sort of made it obsolete, especially as soft as it has been with a little bit of rain that we had. He's basically saying the course is too short for the modern technology these days. And we've spoken about this in the past with the rolling back the ball and maybe reducing the size of the driver head. But when these guys, you shoot 15 under par, I think you're going to finish probably about 20th this week. So it's, in a little bit of a way, it was like a Corn Ferry Tour event in that regard, because that happens week in, week out on that secondary tour. And that's because the guys hit the ball so far and they're destroying these golf courses.
Well, you're right about that short hole, the 15th. Adam Scott hit a 5-wood past the flag in the third round. No wind, and gets his little 5-wood out and just goes whooshka. Ended up putting it back. I can't even remember where he held the putt or not on the way back, but I thought for sure it must have been a 3-wood, and Scotty's just powered one through the back. But when I saw that, it was just a 5-wood. But it's almost a double-edged sword when a golf course is soft and short for these players, because I don't care what anyone says. The new modern ball, it's a missile off the tee. It doesn't spin as well as the old Balladas used to. With the short irons. I still don't think so anyway. And when you can't get the lob wedge or the sandwich to spin as much on a soft course, that's actually a good thing, because instead of these guys, zipping it back 30 feet, where it's uncontrollable at some stages, it just didn't seem to happen. I mean, they're hitting the ball 350 yards. I mean, I saw some of the average drives that Keegan Bradley was hitting this week, and it didn't strike me as a power hitter. But, 350 is an awful long way. And then he'd be flicking these sandwiches in, full ones, and they wouldn't really fizz for him. They'd only come back a little bit. Yet those greens are as soft as, greens you'd ever see these days. So I think what Rory is saying is absolutely right. On a soft course and a short course, the sky's the limit for what is possible as far as low shooting when we're talking about that sort of stuff.
In a weird way, the guys who finished second, Zach Blair and Brian Harmon, are not long hitters. So, the technology has helped them so much that they're still getting it out there, probably 290-ish, I would say, 290 yards. And on a 6,800-yard golf course like TPC Hartford is, they're just going to eat it up and just start firing up flags all day long. So it's it's a tricky one, and some people say, well, should they grow the rough up to make it harder, plant more trees? Well, that really, I don't think, is the answer for sure. I mean, we all know that that's probably not the right thing to do. I think a lot of the comments were, let's make it wider and provide more angles and firmer golf courses. But when it rains, it is very tough to do it in that regard. But another player, who really impressed me this week, again, just ball striking wise, Scotty Scheffler. He just keeps racking up these top fives. What was he, top four? And
yep.
He's putting on a show. And if that guy ever gets his putter going, just look out. It will be crazy how much he will win. And he's had 2 wins, no majors, and he's having a ball striking season that is going down as one of the most record breaking in history. So if he doesn't win a major, if he doesn't win the British Open, you're not sure if it's a season that's a bit of a letdown for him.
Tell us about Zach Blair. The reason I want to ask you about Zach Blair is because he's got a medical exemption. He's got 7 starts. He had to finish tied second for it to basically, he's got his card back. But it's a wonderful thing that the PGA Tour does, doesn't it? And not everyone who gets a medical exemption actually gets the points required to go ahead and keep their card. And they usually have to go all the way back to, or basically the start. And I think the start these days would probably be the fall series of events. You wouldn't have to go all the way back to the tour school to get back on the Corn Ferry Tour. But he's done that in one go. First tournament back, tied second. I reckon it's one of the best efforts I've seen this year.
It is impressive. I'm wondering how he got a start in a designated event. That was the interesting part, because you've got, what are they, 8 or 10 events, these designated events this season, which are worth $20 million. And if you have a good week there, you're basically getting your card back, which is an incredible effort, and credit to him for getting that start and getting in there. He had I think it was a torn labrum in his shoulder, and he'd been out for quite a long time. And these medical exemptions are not easy to come back from. I actually had to do it in my career once. When I had my knee reconstructed. And fortunately, I was able to they gave me about 12 starts to make a certain amount of money. And, I was probably halfway there when I started those 12 events and managed to do it. So that was great. But you feel a lot more pressure coming back when you have a lot of time off, because the world seems to pass you by. That's for sure in that regard.
And Minwoo Lee, again, another outstanding week. But what I'm really enjoying about Minwoo Lee is that he's getting the AirPods. He got the AirPods on round 3. And he did a great job.
Oh, he did? I didn't see that.
Yeah, he got the AirPods in round 3. And that, to me, is another little step forward. We know the new Netflix series is coming out, and Minwoo gets an episode where they basically follow Minwoo around. So he's now he's now kind of jumping into, we think you're going to be a star kid territory. One, he's hitting the ball a kabillion miles. I mean, again, I saw a little bit more of the third round than I did the last. And on the 18th tee, his ball speed was 190 miles per hour. It's the highest ball speed of the day. So 1, he's just blasting it off the tee. 2, he's hitting a lot of greens. 3, he's putting well and finishing strongly. He's creeping towards the top 20 in the whole world. But the Americans are starting to love him and say, hey, Minwoo, can you put the AirPods on for us? We want to talk to you. So I just think it's just really exciting for Australian golf that this is happening.
Yeah, that's an incredible ask or get in that regard. And you probably thank your agent for that one for sure. And the more airtime you get over there, the better for your brand and all that sort of thing. But obviously it helps with him having his sister, Minjee Lee, I think, being so good on the LPGA Tour. So it is a great story. And who would have thought a brother and sister from Western Australia would be, basically almost dominating the coverage on both tours over there for sure. But another good result, as you said, Mark, another top 10 following is on from his top 5 at the PGA Championship. So what did he ended up finishing? Tied 9th, shot a final round 67 at 17 under par. I mean, 17 under par wins most golf tournaments, but this time, no, you're going to be 6 shots behind.
I'm really keen to talk about Lim and Bolter's role, and another Chinese player wins a major, which is enormous for the game of golf. But just my last thing on Keegan Bradley, and I know I've just been baking him a little bit.
Okay, a little bit.
This is my last thing. The last thing I want to say is that Keegan pretty much was the reason that the putter was banned, the anchored putter. Once he won that major, that was pretty much it, and it was on a downward spiral from that point forward. But he started another little trend here. He's been using that jailbreak putter for a long time, and last week the 2 guys who are really in contention for that US Open, Ricky Fowler and Wyndham Clark.
Wyndham Clark.
They've both got that putter. I know I've kind of been slagging him off just a little bit, but without really knowing him. Dan, stop laughing.
That's not a little bit. You have lined him up massively.
Well, it's just a personal opinion. But he's got this putter exactly started what those two, Ricky Fowler and Wyndham Clark. It's a little bit longer. It's a jailbreak look. It could be a little bit what Jason Day did with his spider putter. When Jason Day got to number one in the world, everybody started using the spider putter. A lot of players did. And I reckon when JT was playing well with that the Phantom 5.5, I reckon a lot of players were jumping to try and get a 5.5. I know I did. The only reason I got one was because I liked the look of it in JT's hands. But do you think Keegan Bradley can start this new phenomenon that we're seeing on the tour where we're going to see more players with longer jailbreak putters? Will it happen?
Well, if people keep winning tournaments and putting very well, it probably will. It's a counterbalance putter, isn't it? I think the other player who did something very similar was Webb Simpson when he won the US Open with that belly putter. And then Keegan did, obviously, and then we saw it in some of the younger players coming through. So the USGA has gone, okay, we need to probably stop this. Look, I've been a ping guy all my life, and if you can't putt well with a ping answer, well, then there's something wrong in that regard because it's basically set the tone for everything. So, hey, Mark, before we move on, I know you want to get to the PGA Championship on the women's side, but just the Aussies that were in the field. Lucas Herbert, very good result for him, tied 15th, shot a final round 68. Adam Scott, tied 19th. He started so well with that 62, 8 under in the first round. Wasn't even leading. What was he, 2 shots behind after day one? Someone shot a 60.
McCarthy, I think.
Incredible.
Yep.
Cam Davis had a very good final round, 63 on the Sunday. So that'll give him some good vibes going into next week. But he was tied 33rd. And Jason Day tied 45th. So he shot 9 under and finished tied 45th. That means it's a low-scoring week.
Right, let's talk about Bolter's Roll, a new Chinese winner who has won another major for China, which is great for the game globally. I know. I think you got to start your own top 5 and talk about women's best wins because I know you've been sitting. I've probably missed her in my top 5 because the more I saw her swing, the more I'm thinking, my God, who am I going to push out of my top 5 best ever women's swings because she deserves to be there.
I tell you, when I saw her, I saw her a while ago at the LA Open, which she won earlier in the year. She's only 20 years old. It's her second season for the young Chinese girl. And when I saw her swing a while back, I thought, wow, that looks pretty impressive. But we see so many good swings around. And then you started talking about Rose Zhang the other week, and that's when we did the top 5 women's golf swings. And when I saw her this morning, in the final round, I've thought, wow, okay, this girl's. Maybe we've got a new contender in Mark's top 5 women's swings because the effortless speed to the golf swing is what really impressed me, how the transition from the ground up and she's got this beautiful, she maintains the angle. She takes a fantastic divot through the ball, which is always a great thing to observe and is one of the best ball strikers in the game. They were talking on the coverage. She hit the final 37 greens in regulation, basically over the weekend. Did not miss a green in regulation. And going into the Sunday, the final round, she was 3 shots behind Leona Maguire, who won the previous week. So she's trying to go back-to-back and win her first major. But her goal was not to have a 3-putt on the Sunday because you think, well, if you hit the ball that well, don't have any 3-putts, you're probably going to shoot a pretty good score somewhere in the mid-60s. And 67 hits later, she takes out her first major. It was so impressive.
I've been reading up on her today, and she's had a sore wrist for a long, long time. And instead of getting it operated on, instead of doing hours and hours of therapy and physio and everything else, you know what she did? She just stops hitting so many practice balls. As simple as that. And the wrist came good. And you know what? You gotta laugh. You gotta laugh at the next one because it makes so much sense. Do you know what she started doing? What she started working on when she stopped?
Let me guess. She started working on a short game.
Yes, she did. So she's not only she fixed her wrist, but she's got her head right for the practice. And she started practicing her putting a hell of a lot more than she was her hitting. And miraculously, the hitting has stayed in touch. What could go wrong when you look at that swing?
Yeah.
But 2, we've spoken about this before. When your short game is rock solid, what that does for you tee to green, when you stand on the first tee of a tournament and you know you are sharp as sharp with the short game, you don't fear missing on the short side as much. You don't fear hitting a thin shot or a fat shot, or you don't fear these things because you know getting up and down will be so simple. And it's just a great lesson, I think, for so many players. Have you ever got to a point? I know you've had a sore wrist lately, but was there ever a point in your career, Nick, where you couldn't hit as many balls, and magically you had a nice little run of form?
Well, there was never a point where I couldn't hit as many balls, but what I found and figured out over the years was, to give an example, if I had a 3-hour practice session, I would only spend 1 hour working on my full swing out of those 3 hours. The other 2 hours, guess what? I'm working on my wedges, my chipping, my bunkers, and my putting. And I knew my golf swing it's not going to change too much as you go along. You fine-tune it here and there, but for our listener out there, if you add up your last round of golf, whatever score you shot, say you shot 90, for example, on your last round of 18 holes, I'll guarantee you close to 60 of those will be with a wedge, your bunker play, your chipping, and your putting. 50 to 60, I guarantee. So that kind of tells you, okay, how many hits do you have and how much practice time should you allocate to those areas of your game? Yes, the driver is important, your irons are important, but your short game and your putting, that's where you make a score in this game, that's for sure. And obviously it worked for her. Another friend of mine, I probably told this story a while back, Charles Howell III, who's now playing on the Live Tour, one of the best ball strikers around. I remember he couldn't hit balls for quite a while because I lived on the same golf estate, Isleworth in the US, and because he pulled something in his, I think in his stomach muscle or something like that, so he had to practice his chipping and putting until he came back. First tournament back, he almost wins. He loses in a playoff. So it just goes to show that that's where you win golf tournaments, that's for sure. And the other part about Runing Ying, which I found quite fascinating, was her caddy. This is only their second week together, and it was his first time working in a major.
Yeah,
so this caddy has gone 1 for 1 in major championships. How impressive is that?
Actually, he looked a little bit out of place, to tell you the truth. I saw him. He looked like he was a beach bum to me. He had the long hair.
He's caddied on the Corn Ferry Tour for a long time, apparently, but first time in the major. And the other caddy, the other player that's picked up a very experienced caddy was Rose Zhang. She's now got Jason Gilroy on her bag, who for the last 5 years had been caddying for Minjee Lee. So I know I was talking about how good Rose Zhang was the other week, and you sort of said where she come from, but she almost won this tournament as well. Came within a stroke of the lead on the back nine a couple of times, finished tied 8th, and I tell you what, they are giving her a lot of coverage on the broadcast. So they have some big raps on this young player. So exciting to see how she goes.
Well, I've got a couple of things to tell you. My masterclass is going to be how to hit the ball a little bit longer when you need to. On the back of Yin and the back of Bradley, I'm going to just give you a little insight into how to do it sensibly. We don't want anyone going full lunatic. Hello, Paul Gow. And the other thing is, mate, we've just finished up this 9. So I'm going to catch you on the 10th tee.
Like the podcast? Oh, maybe tell a friend. Drop them a text or share it on your socials. This is Talk Birdie to Me with Nick O'Hearn and Mark Allen.
Are we going to play the crowd on the 10th tee?
Yeah, sure. Okay, why not? All right.
That's just for you, Nick. I've found some people who are very impressed with your last masterclass, which has been just fantastic. I tell you, we've got that much feedback. We've got some feedback coming up very, very soon. Dan's going to be reading that out. But can I just say to our listeners out there, we're about to just get the results for the Aussies at the WA at the PGA Championship for the women. But if you've had a result that you'd like to talk about, maybe someone's broken 80 for the first time in your family, or you've got a youngster coming through who's won a little tournament, or a junior champion, get in touch with our socials, and we'd love to read it out and be on that journey with you guys. So find us on the socials, give us a good idea of what sort of some results that you're really proud of, and we'll have a chat about it next week. Now, Nick, tell us about the girls, some our Aussie girls at the WPGA Championship.
Yes, at Bolter's Roll, we had Grace Kim still just playing some fantastic golf. Shot 69 over the weekend to finish 14th to pick up almost $150,000 US. Thank you very much.
Jeez,
that sees her actually at number 17 on the standings for the LPGA Tour. That's very impressive.
Well, I'm going to guess the mate. I reckon she's won 600,000 or 700,000 this year.
Yeah, she had the win earlier in the year, so that would have been at least probably a couple of hundred for that one, I would imagine. So, yeah, I think she's racking it up very quickly.
Good on her.
Minjee Lee, solid week for her, tied 20th. Promised so much after a nice 67 on Friday, but sort of fell away Saturday. Another outstanding result was for Gabby Rusfells, who plays the Epsom Tour, got an invitation. And that invitation was well warranted, finished tied for 24th. So she picked up $86,000. And I looked earlier as to how much she'd made on the Epsom Tour after 2 wins. Yeah. It was $96,000. So she almost won as much as she had on the Epsom Tour for finishing tied for 24th in this major. So the prize money for this event was $10 million US, which is the biggest in women's golf. So fantastic there. A couple of others who made the cut, Steph Kiriakou and Hannah Green, they both finished 61st and 68th respectively. So, but a nice solid week for the Aussies, 5 making the cut. On the Champions Tour, Rod Pampling and Richard Green finished tied for 12th, where Padraig Harrington, 7 under for his last 7 holes, shot a back 9 28 to win the Dick's Sporting Goods Open, which he won last year. He won by a shot from Joe Durant. So how's that? 7 under the last 7 holes. That's incredible golf.
That's a bit like Peter O'Malley's 7 under the last 5. A couple of eagles and the rest were birdies at the Scottish Open a million years ago. G'day, Pom. He listens every week, Pom.
And also just a little shout out. This is more of a soft spot for me. At the Irish Legends, which is the European Seniors Tour. A good mate of mine way back in the day, Peter Baker, who's English, he's not Australian, but he had a 7-shot win. And the reason I'm shouting Bakes out is because he, like me, is a Wolverhampton Wanderers supporter. We love our English Premier League. And Wolves are up there, so I'm giving him a big shout out. Well done, Bakes.
I can remember Peter Baker coming out. It must have been when he just turned professional. He might have even came out when he was one of the best amateurs in the world. He came out and played the Masters, the Vic Open. He used to come out all the time. And at that stage, I was still caddying. But, God, I used to really have a good look at him. He was a classy-looking player all those years ago. God, he's older than me. He must be about 60 years old and winning by 7. He's going well, isn't he?
He always had the Wolves logo on his golf shoes, so that was always why I remember Bakes. And a lovely guy, ran a fantastic pro-am there in the middle of England where I used to live. So, anyway, I thought I'd throw that one in just because it was a great result for him. And lastly, Brendan Jones, good solid week on the Asian Tour at the Korean Open, finished 4th. Very tough golf course. There's only one player under par. The winner there was 6 under.
He's about 50 as well. So playing with the kids, mighty effort. Okay, time for some feedback, and Dan's going to just go through the good stuff this week, please, Dan.
No wax? Don't want any wax?
No wax.
I was just thinking, when you're talking about living in the middle of England, and before you talk about living in Florida, right? Is there anywhere you were talking Japanese a couple of shows? It might be quicker to tell us where you haven't lived.
Yeah, it's a bit better.
I'm a world traveller, so never been to Russia. So there's one place I've never been. Not sure I'd want to go at the moment.
Wouldn't advise it. Okay, so feedback for you guys. A lot of feedback last week, Nick, on your putting class on Rory with the head.
Loved.
Boom 76. Love your work, Nick. I see a lot of other players doing the same when I'm at weekly comps.
So hang on, Boom 76, or was it Boom he shot 76?
No, that's the title of the bloke who wrote it.
I thought maybe he's got the putting masterclass and went Boom 76 off the stick.
Mate, I don't know. Okay. I wasn't watching him. So
Righto.
John Martin has written in, isn't it interesting that Nick and all other great instructors never mention a particular brand of putter is necessary? Well, Nick did just pump up ping before.
Yeah, he did.
Just sound mechanics, save your money and practice the fundamentals.
Well, he did for 1 week, but not this week. Whoever said that
in. So Nick is proving John a liar, I think.
Yeah.
Also on the same thing, Wayne Malari has said, I've always wondered about that with Rory. It looks most odd. Good advice from Nick. And Dazzler 371. Another great masterclass. I reckon you've solved a large problem I've got. I have fallen into the Rory way of lining up a putt, and I haven't made a decent length one in ages. It also could be a lack of ability, but I'll give this a go first.
Yeah, well, it won't be long before Rory's listening. I mean, you could end up, we'd get rid of Brad Faxon. you're going to burn him. You're going to burn Fax, and you're going to take over from Rory, and you're going to turn him into a major winning machine.
No, I'm sure Fax knows what he's doing. Don't worry. And they've probably looked at it and thought, no, it's all fine. But I think for most people out there, tilting your head the right way is the key with those putting. Anyway.
Now, this is not, well, it's sort of feedback, but it's more questions for you guys. I've got about 3 or 4 questions from people, so I'll be really keen to hear what you guys say on these. JBald77, Jason, has written in to say, I have Maverick cavity back irons and a launcher driver for their game improvement and forgiveness aspects. Is there a point in my game where these styles of clubs become redundant and I need to switch to more traditional blades and drivers to get to the next level?
Well, I reckon that's a pretty good question. Now, I know those clubs you're talking about, and the sweet spot would probably be getting up to the size of a 20-cent piece. So if you are actually finding that sweet spot all the time and you want to go to a club that just looks better, then you could probably do that. But the next one down will be somewhere in between a 10-cent piece and a 20-cent piece. And then you'll end up getting to the blades, which is what, Nick, about a 5-cent piece, the sweet spot, something like that. So it really is what you're comfortable using as far as the sweet spot is concerned. That would be me. I mean, sometimes we call them shovels, the big clubs. Sometimes if you've been using the big shovels for a long time, they don't look quite as neat and quite as nice as something that is developed for a very good player. So it's a bit of a trade-off, but if you're feeling comfortable and you want to maybe use something that looks a little bit nicer, a little bit cleaner to the eye, it might be time to move.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you, Marko, there. I think for the mid to high handicapper, those more forgiving golf clubs are definitely a good option to get you going, get the ball going in the air all the time. Put the hybrids in the bag. We've spoken about that a little bit as well. Very, very useful golf clubs. But if you feel like, as Mark said, you're striking the ball out of the centre more often than not, and then you want to start shaping the ball a bit at will, well, that's probably when you're getting into your single-figure markers and that sort of thing. Well, then you can look at a more traditional style, but I'd even still have that slight cavity on the back. If you go for the full-on blades, they are very tough to use, and I don't even use them myself. I've still got a bit of a cavity back on the blades that I use with Ping. See, I'm pumping up Ping again.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
But I think every major company, they have these blade-looking golf clubs that have that slightly more forgiving sweet spot. So once you get your handicap down, I'd look into those for sure.
Can I just talk up the clubs that I use, please? Because the clubs that I use, the T100S from Titleist.
Here we go.
I'm telling you, they are simply the best clubs that I've ever used. Ever used. By a mile, and they've got these new ones coming out soon, the T150 that replaces it, and these will again be a club that just, you look down at it, you go, wow, I just want to play golf today. But then when you actually feel the club come off the face, the sweet spot is quite big, and I'm going to say it's somewhere in between a 10-cent piece and that 20-cent piece that we were talking about. Don't look at me like this, Dad, like I'm trying to sell. I'm giving advice. And, Nick, you're laughing as well. I'm telling you they come with my highest recommendation for all standard of golf, unless you're Rory, who just, can hit it out of the 5-cent piece.
I think they make a wonderful golf club. I've used Titleist balls my entire career. They are the best ball in the game. And, worn the FootJoy shoes as well. But club-wise, it's just important to go with whatever looks and feels good to you.
Okay, some more questions here. I like these questions. They're really good. I think we should get more. If anyone's got one, shoot them in.
Shoot them in.
This one from Everyday Golfer Slow-Mo Swing. He said, or she, could be a female, if we can repair pitch marks on the green and replace the ball, why can't we repair a divot on the fairway?
Well, you mentioned this last week, Nick. Because some divots are different from other divots. Some have already grown in, some are almost grown in. When do you call a divot would be the biggest headache. So I think the best bet is to go back on the Talk Birdie to Me socials and find the lesson that Nick did about 3 weeks ago and have a look and learn how to play out of a divot. Because if you can learn how to play out of a divot, it'll give you such an advantage on your friends, and they will be jealous and really angry when you can hit nice shots out of divots.
It's funny, I see the game in there's 2 games you're being played. One that's on the green, so you're playing on the ground, and then one off the green where the ball goes through the air more often than not. So depending on what sort of a player you are, obviously. But so I think greens is almost a separate part of the game of golf. So you should be able to do whatever you like there. The rest of it, play it as it lies.
Tick, tick, tick.
If you want to see all the masterclasses, by the way, go to the YouTube channel. That's the easiest way to go. They're all there on YouTube.
Hang on a second. Have we got a YouTube channel?
You've set it up.
I didn't even know.
We have a YouTube channel.
Well, please tell people where it is.
Well, it's Talk Birdie to me on YouTube. I mean,
are you kidding me?
What? All the masterclasses are there, so you can go and see it.
That's fantastic.
Last question here. This is from Peter Klein, PK Enjoying Life. Are most tournament courses... he's got two questions, actually. This is the first one. Are most tournament courses, excluding the majors or where the rough is silly, easier for amateurs to play as all playing surfaces are perfect and you nearly always get a great lie in a bunker?
Interesting. Now, it's amazing, Nick. You'd play in a Pro-Am in some tournaments that were rip-roaring and set the play, and the greens that they thought they might have been on as far as firmness, we thought they were soft, and yet the amateurs thought they were rock hard. And then when Thursday came and the amateurs weren't there anymore, the greens would be even harder, and the amateurs would have no control over their golf ball whatsoever on Thursday and Friday. But on the TV, it would look like the pros do have some control. So even though the greens are perfect, and even though the fairways, look like no one's played the golf course for a few weeks, because of the firmness of the greens, which is unusual for most amateurs, I think they'd find it pretty difficult even on just your standard Australian golf tournament.
Yeah, I think so for sure. And they used to do that at Augusta National every year too, the Monday through Wednesday before you played the tournament. You thought, this isn't too bad. We can get used to this. And then all of a sudden Thursday, they sucked the moisture right out of the place and it just became a different golf course. But the other thing that you need to think about is the way they set golf courses up from tee to green with pin positions and where they set the tees and things like that. They set these golf courses up as tough as they possibly can. So it's like setting it up for a club championship, I would imagine, for most people at their home club. And think of the most difficult pin positions and the most difficult the course will play. That's what the pros play week in, week out, which is a scary thing to think that, okay, they're actually even better than we think they are, which at the top level, they really are.
They really are.
I love it how you guys say they're even better than we think they are when you guys were that yourselves.
Yeah, it's a different game again as far as
we used to be. We used to be there.
Yeah. The second part of Peter's question was this one. This is a fun one. If you could only do one trip, would it be King Island or Barnbougle?
I'd go to Barnbougle. That's just personal. I've been to both. Barnbougle, I think it's a little bit better when you finish playing. Yeah, the setup there is great. I believe the setup for King Island is about to get started, so that could be different. But right now, I'd go to Barnbougle if you had to pick one. What about you, Nick?
Well, I can't answer that because I haven't been to either, so I'd be happy to go to either.
You haven't been to Barnbougle or King Island? I find that unbelievable. What are you doing?
Well, I've only been back in Australia a few years, and about 18 months of that was in lockdown here in Melbourne. So
okay, I think we're going to have to put out a call.
There, but I've got to make a trip.
We're going to have to put out a call. We're going to go down, do the show from down there. Let me make a few phone calls. We might have to take some people. In fact, we might even be able to make some coin out of this. So if we do it properly, we take 30 people down, we'll be right. Leave it with me. We need to get you to play these courses, Nick. It is time for Nick's Top 5.
Really? What is that?
That's
oh,
the
my
best
goodness.
Yeah, folks, listener.
Budget cuts.
Dan, who helps us here, has found the buttons for the sound effects. And he's like a 5-year-old pushing these stupid buttons.
Well, it is fun.
All right. Nick, what's your top 5 this week?
Store. Okay, top 5. So the Women's PGA Championship was on a great golf course, Bolters Roll. In a couple of weeks' time, they're going to be playing Pebble Beach. So my top 5 is on golf courses I would love to see the women play on at some stage, whether it be a major or just an event in general that we don't necessarily see them play. Now, I'm sort of staying in the US here because obviously that's where we watch a lot of the tournaments. They do play the historical courses in the UK, like St Andrews, Sunningdale, Murfield. They played that recently, which was a big one for them as well. But so I'm going to stay in the US. They did play Carnoustie, yes, exactly. So number 5, it's an event which you have to, if you ever are in that area, in the Phoenix area, you have to go and see because it's just something quite bizarre and fascinating, and that's the tournament at TPC Scottsdale. Yes. I'd love to see the women play there. The stadium hole, that finish of 15, the par 5, with the island greens, 16 as the par 3, where they all go nuts, and then 17, a wonderful short par 4. But that's a great course, I think, for them to play. That's my number 5. Number 4, Shinnecock. Would love them to see them play a US Open there. I don't think they have played there, have they? I can't recall them ever playing Shinnecock.
No way.
That was in your top 5 US Open courses, Mark. I know that, but that would be an absolute beauty. Number 3, Jack's Place, Murfield Village.
Good idea.
Wouldn't it be fun for them to have a women's memorial? I think that would be a great spot for a tournament.
That's right.
Because even if you don't love the golf, you get into the clubhouse and they make the best milkshakes in the US, I reckon.
I was going to ask, do you think the line would be as long for the milkshakes in the women's event than it is for the men's? I don't think so.
It probably wouldn't be, no. I don't think it would be.
I don't think so.
Number 2, would love to see a Women's Players Championship at Sawgrass, TPC Sawgrass. I think that would be an incredible event.
Oh, yeah. The girls on 17.
Just coming down that stretch.
Sensational. And the drive on 18 is a killer for lefties and a little bit easier for the righties.
Indeed. And my number 1 for courses I'd love to see, this is probably an obvious choice, but I would love to see them get rid of one of the women's majors, preferably the Evian. And sorry to Evian, but that one really doesn't rank as a major in my book and many people's books, because even some of the top players don't go to play it. But they need a Masters at Augusta National. That'd be something special.
I agree with you.
They have the women's amateur, obviously, but to have the pros there, to have their own Masters tournament. Majors should be PGAs, Opens, and Masters, shouldn't they? So let's go with that.
Fantastic. It's time to get to the Masterclass, brought to you by Evian. Oh, come on. That was funny. Don't give me the crickets, Dan. Oh, please.
Oh, that was very good.
We might be facing defamation from both Evian and Keegan Bradley on this show.
You're probably right, actually.
If Keegan Bradley gets in touch with us on Facebook, we might actually have a few issues. Now, our winner at the women's PGA, Lynn, and also Bradley at the men's, what I did notice this week, and I looked back, they ripped up the par 5s. And one of the things you've got to do on the par 5s to rip them up consistently is actually get the ball off the tee with just a little bit extra force, particularly on tournament golf courses. But what I saw them both do, it was subtle, but in the same way, it was absolutely beautiful. Now, Nick, you've seen this 1,000 times when somebody who doesn't play much golf wants to hit something a little bit further, you can almost see them tense up before they've teed it up twice as high as they probably should. And you just know the ball's not going to go anywhere near where this person wants it to go. So I always go back to something that I heard Jack Nicklaus say a long time ago. And Jack Nicklaus said when he was trying to hit the ball further, what he would do is he would try to have a very deliberate backswing. Now, language is everything in golf, and language is everything when you're trying to teach people things in golf. And I want you to go out and try. If you've never actually tried to make a deliberate backswing, you need to do this because, one, for some reason the tension goes out of your arms. I don't know why that is, but it does. Number 2, you always finish your backswing when you make a deliberate backswing. Now, those two things are very, very important when you're trying to hit the ball a little bit further. Because, one, you've got to finish the backswing and you've got to come down into the ball with as little tension as possible. Now, there's going to be a little bit of tension because you're trying to hit it hard, but you want to get rid of some of it. So if you have a deliberate backswing and then you try to pop the ball a bit, so you try to give it a little bit extra force through the hitting area, but then it's got to be a little bit of Rory McIlroy in this as well. So there's a little bit of Jack and there's a little bit of Rory in this masterclass.
This is a hybrid.
What we want is the deliberate backswing. Then you've got to pop it through impact, but you still got to finish balanced. And if you're doing those sort of things, then you've got half a chance of actually hitting the sweet spot and getting the ball to go a little bit further. And, Nick, trying to get the ball in the vicinity where you planned it to be. So there's 3 things. The deliberate, you've still got to pop it. It's the only way to get the ball a little bit further. But if you can do those 2 things with a balanced finish, so you've got to stick that landing, then I think you're a real chance to start doing that more often. You don't have to do it all the time. How many times did you try and hit it flat out, Nick, in your career? percentage-wise?
Very rarely.
Yeah.
Very rarely. It had to be a very wide open fairway, downhill and downwind, where I just wanted to send it. But I love what you said about the deliberate backswing there, because what tends to happen when people try and hit the ball harder is they take a faster, shorter backswing because they try and do it on the backswing rather than through the ball. So you're spot on.
Anyway, always great to have you. I know you're not a Cathedral, but you're up that way. Great to have you, Nick, and speak golf with you every week. I absolutely love it and can't wait to talk to you next week.
I love it. All right.
Oh, there it is. That's Nick O'Hearn and Mark Allen's podcast, Talk Birdie to Me. Now, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and you'll never miss an episode. And if you can share with a friend, well, that'll be awesome too. Talk Birdie to Me's executive producer is Dan Bradley at Kaizen Media. Sound design, Daryl Misson at loudzebra.com.